You ever walk out to your mailbox just minding your own business, and suddenly your whole world gets flipped upside down? That's exactly what happened to me the morning I found a $5,000 electric bill, wedged in with the weekly grocery ads, the kind of bill that makes you question reality and wonder if someone's secretly running a crypto mine in your basement. Right there, standing in my driveway with my work boots half-tied, still smelling like sawdust. I knew my HOA had just declared war on the wrong guy, because I've been an electrician my whole life. And if there's one thing I know, it's when somebody's trying to run a scam under my nose. My hands, these same hands that wired up half the houses on this block, were literally shaking. And not from fear, but the kind of anger that creeps into your teeth, the kind that makes you want to rip something in half just to hear it tear. $5,000 for 1 month of power. In a house where I'm the nutcase, always switching off every single light just to scrape a few more bucks into my daughter Sage's college fund. What these HOA suits didn't know was, I can sniff out electrical fraud from 3 streets over. That's the thing about picking a fight with an old-school tradesman. You think you're handing him the bill, but what you're really doing is handing him the blueprints to your own destruction. Let me back up a sec, just so you see the whole circus. My name's Dalton Reed, third-generation electrician. My dad taught me, his dad taught him, and I've been running wire since I was 16. This isn't a story about wiring houses, though. It's about wiring justice, about keeping a promise I made to my late wife at her graveside, back when the world felt like a busted circuit, promising Sage she'd get every opportunity her mom never did. That's how we ended up at Pine Rest Estates, which on the outside looks like the kind of place you'd see in a luxury magazine. Lawns like Pudding Green's, houses shining like car commercials, and an HOA so proud of itself it practically squeaks when it walks. For the first few months, I played by their rules, kept my head down, paid those $180 a month fees, nodded to the neighbors, figured if I just did my part, nobody would come knocking. But that was before Cordelia Blackwood introduced herself. Picture every HOA horror story, give it a business degree, and squeeze it into pressed khakis and a white Lexus with HO rain plates. Yeah, she actually thought that was clever. This woman measured grass with a ruler, wore pearls to water her mailbox, and could make good morning sound like an eviction notice. At first it was little stuff. A $150 fine for a basic security camera after a string of break-ins, even though our own 847-page covenant allowed it. I went to reason with her, but all I got was her staring me down in her marble foyer like I'd dragged a bucket of grease onto her Persian rug. Interpretation is the board's discretion, she'd say, arms folded like a judge about to pronounce sentence. That was just the start. Every week, a new violation: grass too long, mailbox too matte, hose visible from the street, each with its own fee and processing charge, until every new envelope in the mail felt like a punch to the gut. But nothing, and I mean nothing, could top the $5,000 electric bill. Delivered at 6 a.m. by a process server looking like he needed a hug more than I did. Cease and desist in bold red letters, the kind of lawyer speak that tries to scare you into compliance. Pay in 10 days or lose your house, they said, for repeated covenant violations. Through the kitchen window, I saw Cordelia watching from her bone china mug 3 doors down, grinning like she'd just won the lottery. That's when something clicked. My dad always said, "Don't argue, investigate." Electricity doesn't lie, even when people do. So I did what any angry, slightly obsessive tradesman would do. I spent a weekend knee-deep in county records, public filings, and every dusty document I could get my hands on. Turns out the HOA's new electric policy hadn't been properly filed. No homeowner vote, no legal notice, none of the stuff that makes a rule an actual rule. Even better, I pulled the clubhouse power records 340% usage spike over 6 months for a building that hosts monthly bingo. Now, I'm no detective, but even I know that's not just someone running an extra toaster. Time to call in reinforcements. Jake Morales, meter reader by trade and my best friend since trade school. We meet up in the Home Depot parking lot. Smell of fresh lumber, my kind of place. And Jake's already shaking his head. That clubhouse meter's running like it's a small factory, he whispers. We decide on a little midnight investigation, suburbia, after dark flashlights. 2 guys who know more about electricity than most city inspectors. What we found: someone had rigged a jumper cable setup, bypassed the main meter, and was feeding power straight to somewhere else. The kicker: the meter had been tampered with, making it look like the clubhouse was eating all the power, but in reality, it was going somewhere else entirely. You know what I mean? When the puzzle pieces snap together so loud you feel it in your teeth. I remembered Cordelia's side hustle in online ceramics business. Industrial kiln and the garage sales through the roof and a utility bill that never made sense. That's when my phone buzzes with a text, "Pay up or lose your house." 9 days left. Instead of fear, I finally grinned. From there, things escalated fast. Cordelia tried to bury me in paperwork complaints about my commercial workshop, forged signatures, on-board votes, accusations so thick it took City Inspector Randy a whole morning to comb through my garage. But Randy wasn't born yesterday. After poking around and testing every outlet, he said, "This is textbook residential setup. Everything's to code." Cordelia's smugness faltered. Then she tried insurance angles, legal loopholes, anything to shut me down. She'd overplayed her hand. Meanwhile, I had Jake pulling 2 years of meter readings, Mrs. Martinez, the neighborhood paralegal, sorting evidence into color-coded folders, and even Sage crunching numbers on her laptop like some junior FBI agent. That's when Harold Morgan, one of the original HOA founders, knocked on my door with a folder thick enough to stop a bullet. His late wife, Maria, had documented every shady election, every missing audit, every phony expense Cordelia had pulled for years. Turns out Cordelia's presidency was never legitimate. She'd forged elections, diverted HOA funds into her ceramics business, and wired up her industrial kiln using stolen electricity, almost $300,000 in fraud and theft, over 6 years with all the receipts to prove it. Maria had planned to go public, but died suddenly right before exposing the scam. The pattern was clear. Anyone who got close either moved away, got shut up, or in Maria's case, never got the chance to speak. The next days were chaos. Cordelia slashed my truck tires caught on camera, tried to bribe Harold with a fat envelope, and even hired a private eye to dig up dirt, which only made the neighborhood unite against her. Residents who'd paid thousands in fake fines started comparing notes, and by Friday we had a war room evidence of fraud, mail tampering, forged documents, election rigging, enough to make federal prosecutors salivate. We gave Cordelia a final choice: confess, publicly make full restitution and resign, or face a federal investigation with every piece of evidence we'd built. She picked the worst possible option, went nuclear, filed bankruptcy, posted online rants blaming everyone but herself, gave a TV interview in front of her illegal kiln, and tried to move her equipment out in the dead of night. It was like watching someone dig their own grave with a backhoe. By the time our community meeting rolled around, the room was packed. TV cameras rolling, a federal agent in the back, and half the neighborhood demanding answers. Martinez took the mic, laid out 4 years of theft. Harold presented the election fraud. I dropped the bomb photos, diagrams, every bit of electrical theft and code violation you could imagine. Cordelia's lawyer looked like he wanted to crawl out the window. Finally, Agent Patterson from the FBI stood up, said, "Mrs. Blackwood, I advise you to stop talking." Cordelia, sweating bullets, confessed to everything on live camera: embezzlement, forgery, utility theft. 20 minutes later, she signed restitution agreements and resigned for good. 6 months on, everything changed. Cordelia's mansion sold, her equipment seized, and the money used to pay back the families she stole from. Sage went off to college on a full scholarship thanks to a fund Maria's legacy helped build. The HOA reformed, new leadership, real transparency, and even the property values ticked up for the right reasons. As for me, my business exploded. Folks called from all over just to hear how one stubborn dad took down a tyrant with a pair of pliers and a stack of evidence. Every now and then I visit Sarah's grave to tell her about Sage's successes, about how standing up to bullies isn't just about protecting your own, it's about making sure nobody else has to fight alone. Cordelia. She moved out of state, working a desk job, no more Lexuses, no more thrones. And maybe, just maybe, she finally learned what it feels like to have to answer for every wire she ever crossed. Now, if you've ever dealt with a petty tyrant, HOA or otherwise, drop your story in the comments. You're not alone, and your voice might be the spark that helps someone else light up the dark. Because the one thing I've learned is justice is like electricity. Once you set it flowing, it always finds the path to where it's needed most.